This is what I learned from changing the front and rear sprocket of my Ninja 250. I changed the front sprocket from 14 to 15 teeth and the rear sprocket from 45 to 38 teeth. So, for those of you who are thinking about doing it and want to know if it's worth it or what the difference will be, here is the end result. So, if you look at this chart, um, with the green stripe, that's the original 15 and 45 teeth sprockets. The blue stripe is if you just change the front sprocket to 15, and the red stripe or the red line is when you change it from 14 to 15 in the front and 45 to 38 in the rear. And it's a significant difference. And this is if you're not into having a snappy motorcycle, but trying to squeeze more mileage or better gas mileage or a higher top end speed. If you look at the spec uh, of a Ninja 250, it says its top speed is 105 miles an hour. But if you look at this chart based on the original gear ratio, you'd have to go 13,000 RPM in sixth gear. And that's that's assuming that the wind drag and everything is not pushing you back, and you can even make it to 13,000 RPM to get to 105 miles an hour. And also it redlines at 14,000, so you're almost at redline. And I don't know, I'm not one of those people who likes to get close to redline. I mean, I'll redline my bike once in a while if I need to, shift or pass or something like that. But in a normal situation, for just highway cruising, for this type of bike, I like to keep it around 8,000 RPM. And with the new sprocket setup, it gives me about 80 miles an hour. So one thing you have to learn, or one thing I want to tell you, is that in sixth gear with this configuration, it is, with the wind drag and stuff, it is kind of difficult to keep it at highway speed, to keep it at least at 80. Here's a picture of me going 80 miles an hour in sixth gear, and it's right at 8,000 RPM. But the problem is, that's with the throttle wide open, but the wind drag on was pushing pretty hard on me, so it was hard to get any faster. Here's where I got it up to 8,500 RPM, and it's going 84 miles an hour. And but when I shift it back down to fifth gear, um, is a little bit more forgiving. So when I shift it back down to fifth gear, I got it up to 9,000 RPM. And I'm sorry, when I shifted it down to fifth gear, I was able to get it up to 10,000 RPM and got it up to about 89, 90 miles an hour. But that was with me, ducking down and just barely looking over the windshield. So that is the end result, the top end result of changing your gear ratios to this configuration. But gas mileage, I really haven't looked into it, but it's a given that it will increase your gas mileage because you're not spinning as high of RPMs to get the same speed. So let's take a look at each individual gear. Here's a chart of the standard configuration of 14 in the front, 45 in the rear. You can pause it here and take a look at it. Here's the configuration with just the 15 changed to the 15, but leaving the 45 tooth gear in the back. And here is a composite. So I'm going gear by gear. So first gear, what I did was I took the previous charts and I basically did a trend line of the miles that I could interpolate from the chart. And so the green line is the standard configuration of 1445. The blue line is just changing the front sprocket to 15, but leaving the back sprocket at 45. And the red line is actual data that I collected, and I'll show that video at the end of this video of me collecting the data, real actual data, and then of course some of the data points are interpolated. So in first gear, you can see how steep the red line is, meaning that you do get quite a substantial increase in miles per hour with the new sprocket configuration. In second gear, it's better, but you're still looking at from the original 44.5, so you're getting about 10 miles an hour difference at the top end at 11,000 RPM. Third gear was kind of weird. Third gear, based on the industry standard gear versus miles per hour, the change didn't really do much difference. If you're looking at the top end at 11,000 RPM, you're looking at 4 or 5 miles an hour difference in third gear. So third gear is kind of a weird configuration. And then fourth gear, it starts to kind of spread out again. So from 68 to top end 81. So another 10 mile an hour difference in between the original gear configuration and the new gear configuration. And then fifth gear is where you start to really diverge from the original. So top end, you're getting 80 miles an hour, and with the original configuration, and with the new configuration, you're getting theoretically 105. And then back to sixth gear, the reality is the original specified miles per hour at 8,000 RPM is about 65 miles an hour. So to get up to 80 miles an hour, or say highway speeds, even 70 miles an hour, you'd have to go about 8,500 RPM, which isn't bad. So this kind of saves you 500 RPM. It's not a lot, but it's something. And then, of course, if you're trying to get to a higher speed, at the high end, you're getting 20 miles an hour more at 11,000 RPM. So the practical part of the gear change is in this area here, between, say, 8,000 and then 10,000 RPM. But again, I had a hard time getting it to 9,000 RPM in sixth gear, so I had to drop it down to fifth gear. But I was, depending on the wind drag, I was able to get it up, up to 85 miles an hour on the highway, versus I would have had to take it to, I would have to gone 10,000 RPM to get it to 80 miles an hour. So that's the result of changing your sprocket between the 1445 configuration to the 1538 configuration. So I hope that information helps somebody. And here is the raw data of me collecting from the original configuration, and going from 0 to 50 with the original configuration, just for practical sake. Okay, I'm going to be changing the sprocket, the front sprocket, from 14 teeth to 15 teeth. And there's a lot of information on the internet, but it's, a lot of it's calculations, and a lot of it is just single opinion.
So I'm going to do a little bit more scientific review or video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each gear and get the RPMs, maybe 3 points of data between the gear, the RPM, and the speed. So I'll start like in first gear at, say, I don't know, 3,000 RPM, what that is, 4,000 RPM, and so on. And try to hold it as long as possible so I can get good data. So I'm going to point the camera mainly at the speedometer, and I'll try to also record what I see. So here we go. Okay, 10 miles an hour in first gear is 4,500 RPM. 15 miles an hour is, we'll call that 59,000 RPM, 5,900 RPM. Okay, second gear, I gotta stop here. 4.5 gives me 15 miles an hour. 4,000 seems to be easier to hold. 4,000 gives me 15 miles an hour. 5,000 gives me, we'll call that 19 miles an hour. Okay, third gear, we'll go third gear. 3,000 gives me 15 miles an hour. 4,000 gives me 19 miles an hour. 5,000 gives me 25 miles an hour in third gear. Fourth gear. Alright, fourth gear, I got 3,000 RPM. 3,000 gives me, we'll call it 19 miles an hour. Is that right? Okay, we'll go 4,000, see what 4,000 gives me. 4,000, yeah, it gives me 24, 25 miles an hour in fourth gear. Gives me 21 miles an hour. Fifth gear, 3,000, 21 miles an hour. 3,000 gives me 24 miles an hour. That's sixth gear. So 5,000 RPM in sixth gear gives me 40 miles an hour. 6,000 gives me 50. 6,000 gives me, 49.50. We'll go 49. 6,000 gives me 49 miles an hour in sixth gear. So that's my data points. And I'm going to go calculate. So here's my starting point. I'm going to try to accelerate as fast as possible. Alright, here we go. 0 to 50. 3, 2, 1, go. 50. That's not too bad. I mean, that's pretty snappy. That's real snappy. I don't know how fast that was, but, you know, it was decent.
Here is the data, or the video of me collecting the data after I switched to both the front and back sprocket, and then also going from 0 to 60. Just for practical demonstration. So hope that helps somebody, and have a good day. Later.
First gear. Okay, now I'm going to test out second gear. You'll hear the shifter change. Second gear. Third gear. Okay, let's do 0 to 60. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.